Chat. 1, 2, 3 chat. 1, 2, 3 chat. Alrighty, chat. Let's get started. How are y'all doing today? Hold on. Okay, let me make sure I have my stuff. Okay. Wait. Let me think for a second. Am I going to teach something? I better switch to my Wi-Fi. Hold on. Okay. Just remembered. Chat, how we doing today? Chair stream. Okay, welcome everyone. I just realized that, so I have one of these Wi-Fi extenders, which helps me not lag when I'm using the iPad and drawing and things. But sometimes I have to move my Wi-Fi extender. I guess I could just get two in theory, but I just move it back and forth depending on what room I'm in. But anyway, enough about that. So that way we can use the iPad if we need to. So welcome everyone to another Healthy Gamer GG stream. My name is Alok Kanoja. I'm a psychiatrist practicing in Boston, Massachusetts. And just a reminder that everything we discuss on stream today is intended to be for educational purposes only, and nothing is intended to be taken as medical advice. If you guys have a mental health or physical health concern, please go see a licensed professional. I cannot urge this to y'all enough. So a couple of things to just think about. I think a lot of times people have like low energy and stuff like that. So people will kind of feel depressed. They kind of have trouble getting out of bed. Like they have trouble like motivating themselves, things like that. And I think the key thing to remember is that, if you've been struggling that way for a long time and you haven't seen a medical doctor, it's actually like really important to go see someone. So this is one of the saddest things that I see with people of our generation is that we grow up thinking that a particular thing is normal. I guess it's not even our generation, but a lot of humans will grow up thinking that a particular thing is normal. And we see this a lot with like kids with ADHD where like they just don't realize, because that's the way that they've grown up, right? They don't realize that other human beings can like sit down and actually study. A lot of people don't realize that, other human beings are like actually have like high levels of energy and are able to do things throughout the day. And as a medical doctor, what I've seen time and time again is people will like come in for some problem, and then I'll kind of ask them questions like, hey, like, how's your energy level and stuff like that. And what we sort of uncover is that they like really struggle. And then what we'll do is we'll like actually test some stuff, right? So the really fascinating thing is that these people have been living this way for years, having trouble getting out of bed in the morning, and they don't feel sad. So I don't think they're depressed. They're just like, it's hard for them to do stuff. And then so I'll do like some testing, right? So like, here's some common causes of like fatigue that people don't realize. Like you can grow up this way and it's not like, it'll stay that way and it'll feel normal to you. But one thing is hypothyroidism. So hypothyroidism is when your thyroid hormone is low, and thyroid hormone gives us things like energy. It actually helps us lose weight. It also like helps us grow hair. So sometimes, people will be getting a little bit older and they think they're just losing their hair, but it's actually like low thyroid hormone. Another big one is vitamin D deficiency. So vitamin D deficiency has been linked to depression. We get vitamin D from sunlight. And so vitamin D does all kinds of stuff for us. Like it helps us with calcium metabolism, builds healthy bones. Vitamin D is also like very important for our mood. Another thing that people won't realize is that like sometimes they've got a testosterone deficiency, and that's the reason they kind of feel crappy, feel low energy, things like that. And then, there are also other things like sleep apnea is a really big one that like, especially for people who are a little bit on the heavy set side, they won't realize that they're actually having apneic episodes in their sleep. And an apneic episode is a period of time where you stop breathing. So what's happening with people with sleep apnea is that throughout the night, instead of getting like restful sleep, there are actually periods of time where they're like starving for oxygen, right? It's like they're not actually getting breath and oxygen. So when they wake up in the morning, they feel super tired. And the really fascinating thing is that when you stumble upon one of these things as a doctor, it actually like transforms this person's life. Like someone didn't realize, like, because a lot of times like people with ADHD will have high IQ and they'll compensate, right? They'll work twice as hard. They'll, do tutoring and they'll do like all this extra stuff. And so they can still perform at like a normal level. But once you find the ADHD, it like launches them through the roof in terms of like their ability to do things. Once you discover hypothyroidism, like, and you sort of figure out, okay, like here, take some, let's supplement your thyroid hormone because your body isn't able to produce it. It's fascinating. Like these people will lose weight, they'll grow hair, and they'll like become more energetic throughout the day. For people who have vitamin D deficiency as well, like they'll feel more energy and they'll sort of, feel less depressed on a day-to-day basis. And it's not like a psychological cause of depression, right? So they can like, it's not like they're feeling sad. It's just like literally like they're, it's hard for their mind to be in a positive place. And especially with sleep apnea, it's like, I don't know if you guys get this, but if you have sleep apnea, which is very underdiagnosed, by the way, what happens is you're basically like got a constant debuff. Right? So we get like when we rest, so over time, what happens with human beings is we like, we'll kind of get fatigued throughout the day and our energy level goes down, right? And then we rest, right? So you go to the inn and you lay down and you rest and it like recharges all your batteries. You kind of heal up. So people with sleep apnea, essentially like they never get to like rest at the inn. So they're always playing with this constant debuff, which once you diagnose and you kind of address it medically, then it's like, it's like OP. They feel like they've been playing, they have been playing life on hard mode, and then suddenly you're playing life on normal mode. And I think, especially gamers, like this is a really common thing with gamers because we don't seek medical care. And there's this idea in gaming culture that we're all kind of like degenerates, right? And so like fatigue and like not being energetic and being overweight and malding have become like normal parts of our culture. So as any gamer, when that happens to you, you don't think, oh, maybe I should get this checked out. What happens is you think like, oh my God, I'm becoming like a neckbeard malding gamer. Whereas like the truth is that a lot of this stuff is like actually preventable. So like literally go see a doctor. Even if you don't think that anything is wrong with you, like I know it sounds weird because if you grow up feeling that way, you're not going to think anything is wrong with you, because it's just like normal for you. And that's why like ADHD is the most overdiagnosed and the most underdiagnosed illness like that I've seen in psychiatry. The most number of missed diagnoses that I've ever seen is ADHD. And the most overdiagnosis that I've seen is people getting diagnosed with ADHD left and right. And so get this stuff checked out because like you don't have to continue living that way. At least check that stuff off, like make sure, because a lot of this stuff is like an easy fix, right? In the case of vitamin D or hypothyroidism, like you supplement the hormone and you're done. It's fixed. In the case of sleep apnea, you may need to get like a formal sleep test and then, get like a machine, like a CPAP machine or something like that sort of keeps you breathing overnight. And then it's going to be amazing though, because then you wake up rested and you're like, I can't believe that other humans have felt this way. Like when they wake up in the morning, it's awesome. So get yourself checked out. Really common problems that gamers sort of don't realize they have. And also like really common for like, for gamers to discount them because you're like, oh my God, I'm just becoming a 4chan troll. Like this is no, like you could have a vitamin deficiency. So go see a medical doctor. Anyway, sorry, that was a random rant, which I was not expecting. So let's talk about what we're doing today. So, couple of things. So the first thing that we're going to do, so we were on the news chat. So I don't know if you guys realize this, but what we are doing here at Healthy Gamer has actually like garnered the notice of the regular people, right? So I think sometimes they're referred to as the normies, but let's just say like the people that are not us. So chat, I don't know if y'all know this, but we're going mainstream and people are starting to like recognize. So on the Today Show on NBC, we were recently interviewed. So we're just going to watch this real quick. Oh, can you? Oh.
People, usually boys, unable to walk away from online video games. It could be Fortnite, Counter-Strike, Minecraft, the list is long, as kids sacrifice family, friends, school, even sleep. For years, China has sent teens to addiction recovery centers. Now it's setting tough new rules for minors 17 and younger, banning online video games on school days, Monday through Thursday. Only 1 hour a day on Fridays, weekends, and holidays. And every gamer must register with an anti-addiction center.
That kind of mandate would not work here in the United States, period, full stop.
But, says Jim Steyer, it's a sign of how serious the problem has become.
That was a beautiful shot.
With few friends around during COVID, 15-year-old James Reichert in Colorado turned to his Xbox for online gaming.
But I got a weekly report and it said he'd been on for like 40 hours.
Now his parents have had to set limits.
He has to have his homework done and his chores, as well as maintain a 3.0 or higher grade point average. Then we will basically unlock the Xbox so he can play because we're able to pause the Wi-Fi to it.
They make us feel really engaged.
Even a Harvard psychiatrist says he too was a gaming addict once.
I grew up playing video games, played a lot of video games when I was in middle school and high school, and almost failed out of college for playing too many video games.
Now, Dr. Alok Kanoja runs the Healthy Gamer Mental Health Platform. He estimates 10% of teenage gamers are addicted. Often, the addiction hides low self-esteem issues.
They have difficulty with social interactions, which then just gets worse the more that they play games. That a lot of times video games serve as an escape to something else.
The gaming industry tells NBC News it supports digital wellness, adding nearly all video game devices offer parental controls, which allow them to set time limits. Common Sense Media says it's time for a national PSA push, teaching teens and parents of the dangers of too much online gaming.
At Common Sense, we strongly recommend a public awareness campaign around video game usage that's similar to what we did with kids and tobacco and smoking.
A campaign to wean kids off of their online addiction. Experts say it's important to recognize that kids who are addicted to gaming, it may really be a symptom of deeper problems. Insecurities, inability to socialize, maybe poor grades, not making friends, maybe not going out and playing sports. So getting those issues addressed and then getting kids into the real world, not the virtual world, that's really what the challenge is here. Guys, back to you.
Yeah, that sounds like a really, really important thing to do. What struck me was that China, the government is actually banning it. So I was wondering, like, how are they going to ban it? Are they going to go knocking on doors?
Well, you know, this is a Big Brother society, right? So what they're going to be doing is all these kids have to sign up. We believe that their national identity cards with their dates of birth are linked to their ability to go online and do gaming. Facial recognition likely will play a role here. So the government very much monitoring which each individual kid is doing. They know how old the kid is, and they can shut down access based on your year of birth.
Wow.
Wow.
That's the ultimate Big Brother going on right there.
Goodness.
There are about to be a lot of angry teenagers in China.
I bet.
Tom, thank you so much.
Goodness.
Thanks.
Well, back here at home for me, it helps when, because quite frankly, it's social for a lot of kids. Like for my little ones, especially during COVID, you know, they were playing with their classmates. So as parents, if you guys can come together and say, okay, guys, on school nights, we're not going to do this, or 3 times a week. So then your child knows, you know what, my buddies aren't on either, so I'm not missing anything.
Everyone shut it down.
Everyone shuts it down.
All right.
That
that's good advice.
So try that. Call your parental group and see if they'll do that.
That is actually fantastic advice. So, yeah. So you know.
Now to
Oh
a
God.
feel-good destination that is one of Donna's.
Autoplay. Do you guys want to watch the next clip? The Today Show. But anyway, it's cool, right? So like, I think you know, it's nice. So like, you know, I know people were kind of saying, oh, boomer takes and things like that. But look, they reached out to us too, right? So I think it's cool that we've sort of reached a place where we as gamers get to chime in. Part of what they were also saying, you know, when the reporter Tom was kind of saying it's linked to other issues, that's something that we had actually talked a lot about, which I don't think they aired. But, you know, I shared with them that I think that a lot of times, you know, for gamers, it's not just demonize the game. It's like, you know, help people sort of address the underlying issues that lead them to escape into games. And ultimately, you know, what we try to do at Healthy Gamer is not stop the video games. It's actually help people become healthy gamers. It's like in our name. But I thought it was pretty cool. I think people are starting to take notice that this is a problem. And yeah, so I think, it's funny. Like we hear a lot from parents, and the funniest thing is when parents will seek us out, and then they'll like ask their kids they'll say like, hey, like we want you to do something like coaching or something like that. And then because they've tried to pitch things to their kids before, right? They'll be like, hey, we want you to do this thing, or we want you to enroll in this program, or like, we want you to go to this, China rehab camp or whatever. And so like most of the time they're like, kids are resistant to it. But the really funny thing is that when a lot of parents will tell them like, hey, we want you to do this thing, it's called Healthy Gamer. And then it'll be like Dr. K's thing. And they're like, yeah. Do you know about Dr. K? And they're like, do you know about Dr. K? So that's great. So I think it's funny. So we're sort of starting to reach, platforms and audiences beyond us, which is great. And, hopefully I think as we sort of enter this discussion, I think it's really, really important to do so because, like the woman was saying at the end, gaming does have some positive impacts. It helps us maintain community. It keeps us together and stuff like that. So hopefully, we'll be able to continue to like influence the discussion. I think that's something we're really proud of here at Healthy Gamer, educating folks. And I really respect, I know we kind of trash on boomers and stuff. We should probably be a little bit more respectful, but I think it's really great that they're, reaching out to us and want our perspective, right? They're like asking us what we think about this problem. So yeah, I thought it was cool. Have you learned of our Lord and Savior Healthy Gamer? Not a cult, by the way. Yeah, it's funny. So, so I think, what we do here together, chat, is important. And I want y'all to understand this too. When I say we, you guys may just be like, oh, like it's, he's just saying that to be nice. I don't know if y'all get this, but like most of my opinions come from my interactions with y'all. Right? So like I study like neuroscience and psychology and all that good stuff. But at the end of the day, like most of like the meat of it, right? When I say that like games are, a manifestation of deeper problems, like that comes from us. There hasn't been, I don't think that idea comes from science. What happens is I form hypotheses by actually paying attention to this community and learning from this community. And then what we try to do is take those hypotheses that come from us and then filter them through what we can understand about things like psychology, addiction, neuroscience, etc. And that's sort of how we sort of come to our conclusions. Yeah. I am meat. I'm so confused. Y'all aren't the test subject, so this is important, right? So test subject is once you already have the hypothesis. Once you have the hypothesis, then you design an experiment and you test subject. What y'all are the hypothesis generation, right? It sounds like the digital generation, the millennial, the hypothesis generation. You guys are like, this is where we generate our hypotheses. When we want to try to understand what the experience of a gamer is like, who we talk to and who we listen to is you. And then what we try to do is we try to synthesize a pattern when we talk to a bunch of people. So we did a stream on porn addiction, about a year ago. And like, that was fantastic because it was 5 or 6 people that were sharing their experiences of pornography addiction. And there were a lot of things that I kind of discovered there that like, now that I know to look for, have turned out to be like really true. And one really interesting thing about pornography addiction is it seems that people are exposed to pornography at a very early age and actually like pre-puberty. So like your 8-year-old brain is getting exposed to pornography when you don't even have any kind of like sexual drive or feelings or anything like that. And that seems to heavily, increase the risk of becoming addicted to pornography, which is something that's like a really interesting data point. I don't know exactly what we do about that, but at first we have to figure out, how are these conditions evolving for different people? Yeah, so y'all should watch that. It's interesting. Someone is saying Twitch is the Galapagos and you're Darwin. That's a great way to put it. Right? And exactly. So that's what we have to be. And it's not just I'm Darwin, y'all are Darwin too. Like if you guys go and look at the subreddit, right? Or you go onto our Discord, like what you'll see is that everyone is making observations. And part of what I think is working about this is that it's not just Dr. K. It's like people are posting, like I saw there was a really cool post. It's quite long, so I don't know if we can go over it. but someone, like listened to a part of the Bhagavad Gita or the Bhagavad Gita, and they had some interesting like reflections, which is really cool. Like, they had their own take on things and sort of tried to understand what I was saying, but then also like added their own interpretation, which is awesome. That's great. Yeah, someone's saying great post. Absolutely. Okay, so we've got one other thing that I wanted to kind of show. And this is a TikTok. I don't know if you guys saw this, but I thought it was quite telling.
I quit my job. No.
Wait,
It's a story.
I'm interested.
It's a story. I just talked to Logan Paul. I mean, like, he was just being nice, and I get it. Media, whatever, he has to be nice. Before I approached him, he was bragging about making $3 million. I make $100,000 a year. I'm 22. I do make $100,000. That's cool. And I want to act. I want to do these things. I'm having a breakdown right now. Oh, I'm sitting in the cast. I don't even know what to do. Like, I did come up here by myself. I do have family, but we're not the closest. And I don't have really close friends. There's millions of people trying to do what I'm trying to do. Just watch the clip, okay?
Did you sneak anything?
No, I didn't. I quit my job. No.
Wait,
it's a story.
I'm interested.
It's a story. I quit my job legit 2 days ago. I came up here, took a risk. I'm originally from Ohio.
Did you sneak up here?
No, I didn't sneak in here. I didn't sneak. What do you mean sneak up?
Like
here?
on stage? Or you just like?
Yes, I did.
It's one of the sneak videos.
Sorry, I just.
Did you print the ticket and stuff?
No, I just needed to talk to you. I'm trying to talk to your brother. I'm trying to talk about business. Trying to get a job. Like, I want to do media. I've been trying to get.
What are you good at?
I was 70 dances. I did like
What's
that.
your TikTok handle?
I did that video, like going like that.
Oh, so you really got what it takes.
Yeah, I don't.
Then why would I
need a mentor.
Why would I do that?
I want to be like. I'm 22 years old. I'm just trying.
I bet I can't be a mentor right now, right? In my life, I'm a fuck up myself. I need a mentor. You know what I'm saying? Like, I need
connections, and you need people be around you, right?
No, I didn't have connections and people around. I have Jake. That's it. Do you have a brother? Do you have people? Friends?
I don't.
Friends? You got friends. You got amigos.
I don't.
You don't have friends?
I don't. I swear to God. I'm here by myself.
Where are you from?
I'm from Norwalk, Ohio.
You're a good-looking guy, bro. You have friends, bro. You're fucking lying. You have friends. Go make content. Do stuff with your friends. I'm glad you quit your job. It takes balls to do that, bro. But like now you gotta act.
Try to make a step.
I'm not. Media. But I'm not the guy directly. You're
the guy.
No,
you're the guy.
No, bro. My team is this. Relax, bro. Relax. I'm not the guy. Like life isn't about handouts. You know what I'm saying?
I know. I'm not trying to get a handout. I'm not trying to get a handout.
What are you trying to do?
I'm trying to work hard for a little money. No money. I don't know. I can get a job somewhere else. All I want to move to LA. And I want to be able to be part of that.
Look, I have to go. If you really are serious about it, bro, you should move to LA. And just like you approached me, start making connections with every single person you meet in LA. I'm serious. That's it. I've always said this. If you're charismatic and you can talk to someone, you can make it in LA.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's my advice, man. To do that, bro, but like now you gotta act.
So I just wanted to. So this was something that really caught my attention, and I think that like. Part of the reason I'm sharing it is because I think there's so much good stuff here. I think there's so much commentary about how people approach things. I think there's a lot about what we try to do here at Healthy Gamer that I think this clip actually like exemplifies. So to begin with, so I know it's kind of like a meme clip and people are saying it's fake and stuff like that. I don't know what's real. I don't know what's fake. But what the clip represents, I think, is absolutely important. And the first is that sometimes you got to take a chance, right? The second thing is that sometimes, like, when we're thinking about taking a chance, we have this, like, dream scenario in our mind. And that if I go all in, like, it's going to work, and I put myself out there, and, the rest of the world will, like, align to support me. And that's not how it works, okay? It's like, I recognize what happened. I don't know if I've ever told you all this, but so the second year that I got rejected from medical school, like on the first day of medical school, I showed up at one of the medical schools that I interviewed at. I had gotten like one interview. And then I was like, hey, I was just wondering, did anyone drop out last minute? And is there any way that you guys have a spot? And they were like, no, what the F are you doing here? And so like I turned around and I walked away and I was like, I'm going to take a shot. And then like the world smacked me down. And that's what happens, right? So you can't expect your dreams to come true if you just throw in like one time and do something. It's like, it's not how it works. And what I really appreciate is like, I think Logan's advice here is great, which is it's not about someone being the guy that's going to fix you, right? And I say this is, seriously, like as the cult leader, like it's not going to be me that fixes you, and it's not going to fix overnight. You can't do one grand gesture and everything will work for you. There are points where you need to give it your all, but then like you got to do it again and again and again and again. If you're playing long odds, the way to win the game is to play over and over and over and over again, right? And the longer your odds are, the more times you have to play the game. And so that's the hard thing about, really kind of going for it. So I'd say that, if you're in this kind of situation, you want to take a chance, like I'd say be a little bit more calculated. I mean, I don't know why you have to give up your $100,000 job to go somewhere and ask someone for a job. Like, I don't understand the correlation between those two things, but, still, by all means, go for it. The second thing that I want to kind of talk a little bit about is like, I know that a lot of people, especially folks like Logan Paul, get a lot of crap, right? And I think sometimes that sort of stuff is deserved and sometimes they act out of line and stuff like that. But I think one of the things that really bothers me about like society today is that we look at people who are privileged and their privilege actually results in a lack of compassion. We justify our lack of compassion to a human being because they have some kind of advantage. And if there's one thing that I think we try to do on stream, it's to show that every human being that comes on here deserves some degree of compassion and understanding. And we saw that, I saw, one of the YouTube comments for our last interview, which y'all should check out if you haven't heard about it already, was that 5 minutes in, I never thought that you could have a serious conversation with this kind of person. That this person had so much depth. Like, I would have written them off right away. And I think we do this a lot, and we've seen this a lot on stream. Like, we'll have very successful content creators come on, and newsflash, they're all normal people. And this is a lesson that you learn in medicine, right? Like, so when you're at the hospital and you're like working on the cancer ward, there's like rich people and poor people. There are white people and there are black people. There are men and there are women. There are the privileged and the underprivileged. And there's no question that there are also like healthcare disparities, right? So if you're low socioeconomic status, you have less access to healthcare, your health outcomes are going to be worse. That's a fact of life. And so I'm not saying that we should treat, that we shouldn't help the underprivileged. What I'm saying is that one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is that you should treat all human beings with compassion. And this is something that my teacher in this was actually this guy named Gautam Buddha, the founder of Buddhism, right? So he didn't directly teach me, but like I read it and I was like, wow, this is deep. Because what Buddha said is all human beings are entitled to suffering. And what happens with someone like a guy like Logan Paul, right? So it's like you kind of catch this moment. I don't know if it's staged or not, but it seemed really genuine to me. And the dude, like, first of all, he hears him out, right? Secondly, like, just because he hears him out, he's still like, what are you good at? And the guy's like, nothing. And then he's like, well, then why would I give you a job? Right? So that, like, that's reasonable. And the third thing is that he says he himself is like struggling in a lot of ways and like needs guidance. And so this is the key thing that I want y'all to remember is that no amount of privilege, at least to me, excuses being uncompassionate towards another human being. And this is what we've seen with all these streamers that come on is like some of them are doing okay and some of them aren't, right? Just because you're doing well, just because you have something that you should be grateful for, and you should absolutely be grateful for that, doesn't mean that your life can't be hard at the same time. And this is something that in psychiatry, we've sort of discovered the power of the dialectic, which is the ability to hold two opposing thoughts at the same time, right? So like what we saw in Wednesday's interview was that, here's someone who's a Trump supporter. And one of the criticisms for the interview is like, this is who you're getting to represent Trump supporters. Like, that's not really fair, which is a fair criticism. But then like what happens is just because someone is a Trump supporter doesn't mean that they aren't like good human beings that are, trying to navigate the world in their own way and deserve like an understanding ear and some degree of compassion. And I don't care if you're, the richest person in the world or the poorest person of the world. Like, I think you're entitled to my compassion. And I think that just because you have something to be grateful for and some amount of privilege, which I'm not saying, doesn't give you advantages, like obviously it gives you advantages, but no amount of that privilege means that like human beings can treat you like crap. And I think that like whether you're a content creator or not content creator, one of the things that we try to do here is we try to say, hey, no matter how screwed up you are, if you're willing to like work on being better, like we're here to help you be like not screwed up, right? That's the message. And so I see this so much where like people in our community will devalue themselves and say that like, I am not worth helping. And then like, what's even worse is like, if a streamer sort of complains about something, right? What we'll do is like, we'll be like, oh, like, what are you complaining about? Like, you have so much stuff. And yeah, you do have all that stuff and you should be grateful for that. But at the same time, you can be grateful for what you have and still be suffering. That's the big teaching of the Buddha, that life is suffering. The only constant in life is that people suffer. It's a profound statement, but it's one that I found to actually be like very true. And it's the acceptance of that that really allows us to move things forward. And the third thing that I kind of want to talk about is, the guy said, I'm looking for a mentor. And Logan Paul was like, I'm looking for a mentor too. And this is something that I've seen increasingly in our society, and it really disturbs me, and I'm not quite sure what to do about it. So I'm going to focus on men here for a second, but I think this probably applies to women as well. I'm just not as qualified to talk about that because, first of all, I'm not a woman and I don't know what it's like to live a day in a woman's shoes. But I think that there's like seriously a huge crisis of like people to teach men how they're supposed to behave and make sense of their lives. And I don't know, once again, it may be true of women too. I think that that's generally speaking, there's just a lack of resources and people to show us how we're supposed to navigate this thing called life. I don't know quite what that is, why that is, but I've definitely seen it. I've seen it more in men. And what I mean by that is that the people who end up walking in my door are more often men than women, which doesn't mean that women don't have the same problem or arguably even a greater problem. I'm not trying to make any comparative statements here. But there's something going on in society today where like men don't know how to navigate the world. And so I think part of the problem here is that there's also like this privilege discussion where people will say like, oh, there's male privilege. And that's actually true, right? So if you look at things like white male privilege, there are studies that show that, for example, if you're a white man and you're pulled over by police versus if you're like a minority like man, that, the outcomes of that someone pulling you over are different. There's statistical, representations of that. I've also seen examples of male privilege in terms of like what I can get away with. A lot of my female colleagues couldn't get away with. And it was like shocking realization, but it was sort of like, if I say something that's a little bit territorial or aggressive, it's like more accepted. Whereas my female colleagues are much more likely to be judged as bitches if they actually like are just as territorial as I am. So I think that privilege exists. But on the flip side, and this is a big problem with, I think, the way that we look at things, we say once you have privilege, you shouldn't, that's it. Like you shouldn't complain and you have all of the advantages. Whereas privilege is not like linear, right? It's not like there's one variable of privilege. Because if you also look at it, I think the majority of heroin deaths in this country are white men. The majority of suicides in this country are white men. For every one woman who kills herself, there's like 4 men who kill themselves. The majority of people the majority of workplace injuries are also men. Custody battles tend to be in favor of women as opposed to men. So like the court system is relatively discriminatory. And I'm not trying to go down like the men's rights kind of thing. What I'm saying is that both of these things can coexist, right? They don't have to cancel each other out. That men can have advantages in particular ways and women can have advantages in particular ways. And the data will ultimately tell us like what is and what isn't. At the end of the day, though, what I see in this clip is that like there seems to be some kind of crisis of masculinity where people don't know who to look to. They don't know how to navigate their lives. And that's like a big part of why we started this work, right? So like why I started this, why I talk about spirituality, why I talk about things like dharma and stuff like that, as opposed to, just focusing on psychiatry, because I think the crisis of masculinity in this country should not be reduced to mental illness, which is the other big thing that happens. When we talk about suicide, what everyone sort of automatically goes to is like, oh, they're mentally ill. And I want you guys to think about how devastating of a conclusion that actually is. Because what if they're not mentally ill? What if the actual reason they're killing themselves is not because their brain is malfunctioning, but because they live in a particular circumstance where their brain is actually functioning fully and they just don't have any way out? And the really shocking thing that I've discovered as a psychiatrist is half of the men that I work with who are suicidal are not mentally ill. And it is a shocking revelation. And we got to be really careful about this as a society. And I think this is part of the reason that people are looking for guidance and like mental health stuff is getting worse, is because we think about mental health as mental illness. But mental health is so much more than mental illness. So if we think, I know it sounds kind of weird, but like, what do I mean by that? If you think about physical health, maintaining your physical health is more than getting medical treatment, right? If we think about weight loss, for example, there are medical interventions like medications, gastric bypass surgery. But losing weight is more than medical interventions. We're not going to get this country healthy or the world healthy by giving everyone medication and giving everyone gastric bypass surgery. And if you guys don't know what a gastric bypass surgery is or gastric surgery is, people do more sleeves nowadays. So it's like literally removing a piece of someone's stomach, like half of their stomach. That's not how we're going to get this country healthy. The way we're going to get this country in this world healthy is by exercising, right? By eating healthy things, by understanding how to like control what comes into your mouth, right? And, oh God. Sorry, chat. Let's just pretend that didn't happen. So, and this is the problem in mental illness is that when it comes to mental health is that we assume that all of the problems to mental health are, because I'm a Twitch chatter in here. You guys get that, right? Like I'm a Twitch chatter. Like I know what it's like to take things out of context and type it. So there's Twitch chatters running up here too. But this is the thing about mental illness is that when we look at why people are struggling and why people don't know how to behave, it's not just that they're ill. It's that there are genuine problems with their mental health that are not the result of pathology, right? It's a lack of emotional support, a lack of emotional nutrition. It's people not being available to you when you're suffering. It's people like if Logan Paul made a TikTok that was 100% authentic, where he was like, I'm really struggling right now, life is hard, which could absolutely be true. And then what would the internet do? The internet would rake him over the coals because he doesn't get to suffer. Screw you, you don't get to suffer. It's all an act, right? Like, how is that person supposed to get help? Like, if he asks for it, gets raked over the coals. And so, like, how is he supposed to get help? And this is the big problem, is that so many men will reach out to people for help and they'll get shut down, right? You don't get to say, hey, mom and dad, I'm 22 years old, I'm finishing college, and I don't think I want a job. I just want to like raise kids and be at home. Like you don't get to do that as a man. Like you just don't. People won't, like go look at dating profiles. I mean, it'd be interesting to do this experiment where if you put in your dating profile, like I'm not interested in any, career or anything like that. I just want to like be a homemaker. Like that's not an option that's available to you. So I think that there's a huge crisis going on for men in general. Not to say that, women don't have challenges as well. Texas has just made it legal to bounty hunt people who are getting abortions. So like women are screwed too. Like, don't get me wrong. There's just a whole set of problems. And this is my point, is that like, we can't look at one problem and negate a different problem just because this gender over here is getting screwed. Like, just because men and women as genders have their own challenges does not mean that like the transgender people don't get to have challenges too. Like that's the point. And that's Buddha's point, is that all human beings are allowed to suffer and all human beings have challenges. And the only way this is going to work is if you show up and say, hey, I'm struggling. The right response isn't for me to say, hey, screw you, I'm struggling more, right? Like one-upmanship and taking the space for yourself and not letting someone else suffer and saying, woe is me. Like you have a legitimate concern. Like you're allowed to say, woe is me. But the right move here is for us to all support each other more instead of like fighting over each other or raking each other over the coals. And as someone who had to like navigate, my place in the world and dealing with my ego and like failing out of school and never becoming a doctor and all that kind of crap, watching what happened when I was 26 years old, I went to a Christmas party and saw like these like these social people like from the generation above me, and they're asking me, what am I doing? I'm saying nothing. And then like looking at the pity and like the condescension in their eyes when I tell them that, you know, I don't earn a living right now and I'm not really doing anything is devastating. You know, it's tough. And like, thankfully I had, in a sense, people to turn to. Like I had, you know, my teachers and stuff in India and things like that. And so like, that's what we're trying to do here, right? We're trying to help people have a place to turn to and seek guidance, you know? And I don't know exactly that we have all the answers, but this I can promise you is that you don't have to look for the answers alone, right? If you're someone who needs help, we're here. And when I say we, I mean the community as a whole, because Dr. K can't do everything. And so that's why we have YouTube. That's why we have Twitch. That's why we have Discord. That's why we have Reddit. And reach out for help. And we're going to do our best to try to help y'all navigate and figure out how to put your life together. And just because you're depressed doesn't mean you're ill. It's one of the most devastating and catastrophic diagnostic mistakes you can make. As a psychiatrist, when someone comes into my office and says, I am depressed, if I assume that they have major depressive disorder, prescribe them an SSRI, and send them out the door, I am doing that person a disservice. Depression does not mean that you are mentally ill. Mental illness is one of the things on the differential diagnosis that can make you feel depressed. So is vitamin D deficiency. So is low testosterone. Not necessarily hypothyroidism, but yeah, actually hypothyroidism contributes to depression, right? All the stuff we were talking about earlier. There's a differential diagnosis, not knowing what I want to do with my life, being 22 years old and like wanting to be something that I'm not. That's a good reason to be depressed, and it has a completely different solution. So if y'all are struggling, we're going to do what we can for you. And I'd say, like, if you guys have these kinds of problems, post on Reddit, whatever, you know, we're going to try to explore these issues. And for fuck's sake, don't judge other human beings as best as you can. Or if you're going to judge them, at least have some compassion. Because, like, I don't know if y'all get this, but, like, being a streamer is, like, terrible for your sense of identity. You don't get to be human. Like, that's the one thing we've seen in our Twitch content creator program, is that streamers don't get to be human. Are they successful? Sure. Do they make money? Yeah. But what they don't get to be is human, right? They have to be this person, and they don't get to be, like, authentic. They have to be entertainers, especially nowadays when it's, like, Twitter and Instagram and, like, it's, like, 24/7, right? It's not like a job that is, you know, within a particular window. It's like they have to do it all the time. So, anyway. Rant over. The 22-year-old in the TikTok video needs to apply to be a healthy gamer coach. I don't know if that person is ready to be a healthy gamer coach. I think what they probably need is healthy gamer coaching. You know, I don't, you know, want to encourage. I mean, you guys do whatever you want to, but what I'm saying is, like, if you're stuck, like, and you're looking for guidance, and this isn't exactly what our coaches do. So they're not really there to guide you. What they're there to do is help you figure out how you can move forward, right? Because they don't have the answers for you. Like, how do they know what's right for you? And think about this for a second. So this is really confusing for a lot of the people who come into coaching, because they'll come into coaching and they'll be like, help, like, I thought you had a plan to figure out my life. And so this is one of the hardest things that, you know, the coaches have to try to explain to people is, like, when some rando from the outside or even a family member gives you a plan about how to fix your life, how does that work, chat? You know, the answer is it doesn't. And so people come into coaching and they're like, I thought you were going to give me a plan. And it's like, no, having a plan is the wrong strategy to begin with. The right strategy is not, I'm going to tell you how to fix your life, because I can tell you how to fix your life, but you're not going to do it. The question is, what makes it hard for you to move forward in the direction that you want to go? And that's like a complicated answer, right? So part of it is, I don't know what direction I want to go. Part of it is, like, there's a part of me that wants to move in that direction, but I'm afraid of failure. The goals that I pick for myself are not actually my goals. They're the goals that I was conditioned to have because of my family or my social circle. And so understanding all of those things is what coaches are there to help you do. They're help you to figure yourself out, not tell you who you are, right? That, you know, that's like more for spiritual teachers and things like that, cult leaders. But anyway, So, I mean, I think we're trying to help, and I think people need help. And I think that, no amount of privilege, in my opinion, denies someone the right to have compassion from another human being. And I know that that's not how the internet functions. I know it's an unpopular opinion. That like, oh, you're privileged. Why are you complaining? And there's like some truth to that, right? So I think that the real problem with privilege is a lack of gratitude. So if people are like privileged and they're not grateful for what they have, I think that's a problem on their end. But just because you're privileged doesn't mean, you're impervious to COVID. It may mean that you get, monoclonal antibodies and things like that because you can pay out of pocket, right? If you're like an important person. So you certainly have advantages. We're not saying you don't have advantages. And for those advantages, you should be grateful. But despite those advantages, it doesn't mean that people, should poop on you just because you're lucky in some way or worked hard. Anyway. Okay. So, sorry for the rant. Anyway, that clip just struck a chord with me because I think it's like, mentorship is like really what I think a lot of men need right now. Because like, it's hard, right? Because the generation above us doesn't know how to exist in our world. And so like for someone, and this is what we've seen in the content creator program, and I'm not surprised to hear, Logan Paul say this, is like, because like, here's the thing, like, who are you going to seek for mentorship if you're him, right? Like, you can't find like a 55-year-old dude who's like both famous and notorious on social media who can guide you in that situation, right? It's like, doesn't exist. The generation that we are right now, like, and it kind of comes back to like video game addiction too, and like why I left Harvard. Because like I realized the leaders in the field of video game addiction, they're brilliant and wonderful people, and they've never played a video game. And how are they going to teach me like how to become an expert in video game addiction? They can teach me a skill set, but they can't actually like give me guidance about the subject at hand. And so the world is changing, and we like as a society need to change with it. The devices that we use for work are also geared to like make us addicted to them. And so one of the most devastating things that I see is that like, browsing Twitter can now be a part of your job, which is like really hard, right? Because it's a part of your job. It's a part of fun. It's what you do. It's dopaminergic, so you're a little bit addicted to it. And so you're screwed because there's no boundary between like work and pleasure because like it's all one place, right? Anyway. Okay, so someone say browsing Twitter is not fun to me, so then why the hell do you do it? Right? So this is the other interesting thing if you look at technology addiction, especially video game addiction. You can ask people who are addicted to video games, do you have fun playing? And they'll say, no. Then why the hell do you do it? Like, that's what's going on. There are reward mechanisms outside of hedonics, which are active in your brain. So this is something that people don't understand oftentimes. The circuit in your brain that experiences pleasure, the hedonic circuit, is actually different from the reward circuit. And so oftentimes what happens is and I can pull up a reference here in a second. So this research actually comes out of people with schizophrenia. I think this paper is by Barch and Dowd. Let me just grab this real quick. So this is really interesting. So if you look at the neurotransmitters, so here's why like gamers continue to play video games besides not having fun, right? So if you're in this kind of situation where you're stuck doing a behavior and you're kind of confused like why you keep doing it even though you're not having fun. And so especially like with video game addiction, like I was kind of saying, what people will say is like, hey, are you having fun playing the game? And then the addict says, no, I'm not having fun playing the game. And then everyone else is like, then why the hell do you do it? And then the gamer feels idiotic, right? They feel ashamed because like you should just be able to quit and you don't have a good answer for people. But it comes down to neuroscience. So the interesting thing about schizophrenia is that schizophrenia heavily affects the motivational parts of the brain. And so as we look at one way to learn about the brain is by looking at parts of the brain that are actually not functioning properly. And then you sort of figure out, what happens. If you want to understand how a car works, and I like, poke a hole in the tire, then I'll understand what the role of the tire is. So a lot of our understanding around like motivation and reward actually comes from neuroscience of schizophrenia. And the key takeaway here from this paper, so this is by Barch and Dowd, published in 2010, is that the system for hedonics, or experiencing pleasure, is actually different from the system in our brain that governs reward and behavior. So what drives your behavior and reward, which is the dopaminergic system, is actually different from what the experience of pleasure. So opioids and GABA systems, these are two different neurotransmitters, are the ones that are involved in liking or enjoying something. And this is also the orbitofrontal cortex, so it's a different part of the brain. And our reward circuitry that drives our behavior is dopaminergic and in the basal ganglia. So what happens in the case of someone who's addicted to video games is that their reward circuitry is driving the behavior, but their hedonic circuitry is actually not active anymore because it's shut down. So what you see in gamers is that they become anhedonic, so they don't enjoy playing video games anymore. And in fact, they find a lot of the reason that they find it difficult to quit is because this part of the brain seems to be malfunctioning in some way. So even if you try to do something like read a book or like do something else that other people find enjoyable, like play a game of chess, this circuit seems to be like messed up in some way by playing a ton of video games. And then you're also not getting the reward. Since you're not getting the short-term pleasure, then you don't ever get to the satisfaction of like completing the book and seeing that twist in the end and like thinking about it and stuff like that. So there's no pleasure in the short term, which prevents you from getting the reward in the long term, which means that the only behavior that your brain is driving towards is the reward behavior from playing a video game. Because even in playing 5 minutes of a particular video game, this dopaminergic system seems to be active, even though the hedonic system will never become active. So it can be really confusing for gamers, like, why is it that I don't enjoy playing video games, but at the same time, I can't stop? And it's because their reward system, their basal ganglia and dopaminergic systems are really active towards the game, but their hedonic systems aren't. And so the solution here, I know it sounds kind of weird, and you guys can check out the video on dopamine detox, but the solution here is that you have to reset these systems by essentially being bored for a while. So the good news is that you can change this. All you have to do is suffer through boredom for some amount of time. And I think it usually takes about 2 weeks to really reset these systems. And what I found clinically with the people that I work with is that they become less anhedonic. Anhedonia is the inability to experience pleasure, right? So hedonia is pleasure. Anhedonia is the inability to experience pleasure. So that anhedonia seems to take about 2 weeks to kind of recalibrate. So what I tell my patients who are addicted to video games is like, stop playing games for 2 weeks and be prepared. The main enemy that you're going to have is not depression, is not anxiety. The main enemy you're going to have is boredom. And if you can get through being bored for 2 weeks, and every day it's going to get a little bit better, by the way. So it's, it's not like you're just constantly bored, but you're going to feel a lot of intense boredom for a 72-hour period, and you really have to structure your day. It also helps if you're like on a trip or something, because that can like help reset things. And then every day that goes by, once your kind of anhedonia structure resets, once your hedonic systems reset, once your orbitofrontal cortex is like back to normal, then it's actually amazing because you can start to enjoy the things that like you should be doing. Even things like exercise and stuff like that will start to be pleasurable. And once they're pleasurable, once it feels good to go to the gym, and then you start to see, okay, I feel healthier, I feel stronger, maybe I'm building more muscle, maybe I'm losing weight. And then you get the reward. And once you get the reward, then the behavior gets reinforced. And then you don't have to like use as much willpower, right? Then there's like automatic stuff in your brain that's actually driving you to like continue working out and feeling good and stuff like that. And that's what we see with people is like it starts off really, really slow. And once they start to make progress, it goes like this. So that's a quick kind of rundown of hedonics and reward systems and why gamers, don't enjoy playing video games, but can't stop. So someone's asking, but what if you're a game dev? Exactly. So that's the problem, what I said earlier, right? Like, so the problem now is that social media and games and stuff are becoming a part of our job. So it becomes really hard to set boundaries. And so that's where like social media hygiene is like literally something that we teach the content creators in our content creator program. So we like emphasize social media hygiene. It's something that we're actually going to start doing even more going forward. But anyway. Can I read books for 2 weeks to fix this? The short answer is probably. All right, so we've got a treat for y'all, okay? Got something fun now. So what we're going to do today, chat, is we've got one of our awesome coaches, and we're going to do a role play. So the fun thing about this is that y'all get to decide what... So I'm going to be the client, and we've got Coach Isaac, who's going to be the coach. Isaac is a great coach. But you guys basically get to pick, okay, what the client's problem is. So you guys, there's a poll. So the first thing is can't get a girlfriend. Second thing is I'm looking for the motivation to try to apply for jobs. The third thing is I'm addicted to video games. And the fourth thing is I can't get motivated to study for tests or go to class. Really good examples of common problems that people come into with coaching. And so you guys go ahead and vote. There's a poll. And we'll see what Isaac has to deal with. It's weird. Is the latest donation thing not working? Can somebody, yeah, I'm going to solicit a donation for a moment, just to test. Can somebody donate or subscribe so that I can see if this thing is working? Okay. So it looks like we've got for science. Yeah, I'm soliciting a donation, chat. I get to do it sometimes, right? I get to ask y'all for money. Oh, can I, chat? I'm so poor. No, I'm not poor. If you guys donate to stream, we'll use it for good purposes. I had a cool research meeting yesterday. One of our coaches has a really cool idea for a research project. And the crux of it is that, so people are studying video game addiction and internet addiction. So in scientific journals, you can search for internet addiction. So we have this wild idea at Healthy Gamer. There's a ton of research on internet addiction, and they're experts on internet addiction. Ooh, there's a community gift. Wait, someone's calling me. Hello? Got it. Okay, thank you. Oh, so I just discovered something. So the reason that the donation thing doesn't, thank you if someone did or didn't donate, you don't have to donate. But our donations actually now go to the HG Foundation, and we haven't updated it on stream. So they no longer, they go to the nonprofit. So we just need to update that for stream. But, okay, so what was I saying? Lost my train of thought. Okay, so it looks like we're doing can't get a girlfriend. Sound good? Okay, so we're going to hop in with Isaac. I'm going to actually grab some water. And then we're going to hop in with Isaac, okay? So chair stream for like 5 seconds. All right. Can't get a girlfriend. Wait, why are there like 10,000? Why are there 12,000 votes? Are people just like spam voting? Oh, God. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Isaac, can you say something?
Hello.
Okay,
Hello,
awesome. So this is what we're going to try to do. I'm going to try to... There we go. Hey, Isaac.
Hey.
How's it going, man?
Pretty good. Pretty nervous, but good.
Can you tilt your camera down just a bit?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. Okay. So, everyone, this is Coach Isaac. Isaac, this is everyone. Hold on 1 second. Okay. So you're feeling nervous?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's probably normal.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I hope we'll have some fun. I think you're going to do great, because I've seen what your clients say about you, and what they say about you is that you're great. So I'm sure you'll do fine. And also, I'm not going to go easy on you. So, I think let's kind of put you through your paces.
I'm ready.
Okay. So I'm coming to my first coaching session. Okay. So we don't have to do the whole, boundary spiel and things like that, but we can, so you can skip the, DMs, like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But so take it away, man.
All right. Welcome. Nice to meet you. What do you go by?
You can call me Alok.
Alok. Okay. You can call me Isaac. So how about we start off by talking a bit about what it is that brings you to coaching?
So I saw, like Dr. K's, like I've seen his streams, and, I think that like he's able to help people in like a way that I'm kind of looking for. And so, I was kind of hoping to talk to him, but, I guess that's not possible.
Yeah. So I don't think Dr. K is taking on any new clients as of late. So,
yeah,
but I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what were you looking to get help with?
So I have problems with like confidence and self-esteem, and there are a lot of things that like I know I should do, but it's like hard, like, I kind of feel stuck.
Okay. Yeah. Can you tell me what you mean by feeling stuck?
Well, like, I know that I should be doing like particular things. Like I know I should go to the gym and stuff. Like I know that I need to like get in shape. I'm about 10 to 20 pounds heavier than where I want to be.
Okay.
And so, I need to like work on that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. And can you elaborate a bit on what you mean by confidence?
Well, so I know that like confidence is important, right? So if you like approach people and you're confident, then things go better for you. And so I know like I should be confident, but it's just really hard for me to like be confident. So I'm hoping like, like, can you teach me how to be more confident? Like,
I can't teach you per se, but we can like talk through it and certainly try to understand it. So like, I don't know you yet, So what can you actually share with me like what happens now when you approach people? Because you said if you're confident, it goes better for you. How does it go now?
Well, that's kind of the problem, is that I don't really like approach people, So like I'm a student, I'm a junior. At the beginning I thought that like, if at the beginning I thought like I'm just a freshman and like, I'll figure it out. Like everyone has problems approaching people, but like I'm a junior now. I don't really like go to parties and stuff. I don't really like hang out with other people, and
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is a lot of the trouble you're having is coming from a lack of self-esteem and confidence, and there's a lot of things you should be doing, you should be doing, but aren't. And so what I'm hearing now is you have trouble like approaching people and doing all these things that you sounds like feel like you should be doing, right?
Yeah.
So what do you end up doing instead of all these things that you should be doing?
I mean, most of the time, so like I do like okay in terms of my classes and stuff, like not great. Like that too, I should be working, I should be spending more time at the library and stuff. But really I just, I do get most of my work done most of the time, but it's basically that. And then like I spend time, in my dorm room, when I'm not doing that. Like I spend some time gaming and stuff like that, spend a lot of time on YouTube. I listen to a lot of podcasts. you know.
Yeah. So might sound like a silly question and you don't have to know the answer, but what gets in the way of you going out and like meeting people or working out, trying to lose weight and all this stuff?
Well, I mean, I think that's what I was kind of saying about like the confidence thing. Like, I just don't, it's really hard for me to like do that. You know, I don't know like where to start.
Sure. Yeah. So, and when you say confidence, right? I think I asked earlier, you're talking about how you like view yourself, right?
I guess so. Can you, what do you mean by that?
Well, actually, I should just ask you because I'm forgetting now. But what do you mean when you say confidence?
Well, just like, you know, confident people can do things, right? And like, if I'm confident, I'll be able to like go up to someone and like introduce myself. You know, if there's there's for example, like a girl in one of my classes, and, you know, I'd love to get to know her a little bit better, but it's just really hard. Like, I'm pretty sure she's got a boyfriend. You know, she's got to have a boyfriend. And she's like awesome, and she's funny, and we're like into a lot of the same things, and she's like super cute. But it's just like, I just can't, you know, like, I really, like, there's a part of me that wants to, but I also know like there's no point, right? Because she's got a boyfriend. So, but like, you know, there's a part of me that sometimes wonders, like, what if she doesn't, you know?
Okay. So yeah, so it sounds like confidence is like a prerequisite to doing all these things that you want to do. Like, there's a threshold and you're not there yet. Right. And it sounds like you're actually pretty torn on wanting to go up to this girl. Like, on the one hand, it's pointless because she probably has a boyfriend, but there's a tiny part of you that's like, well, what if, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure, but, you know, I also don't like technically know, you know, like, I've never asked her.
Right. So it seems like low odds.
Yeah. And
Right.
So that's another big thing is, you know, if something has like a low likelihood of success, like, logically, I just know it's not a good use of my time.
Sure. Yeah. And can you, around when would you say, how long have you been struggling with this?
I mean, honestly, it feels like, in a sense, my whole life. Like, I've never really, and I think that's kind of part of the problem is that, you know, what I realized is that, like, when I was a freshman, so I've been watching a lot of like Dr. K streams and stuff, and I realized that, you know, by the time freshman year rolled around, like, the people who made friends were the ones who like knew how to talk to people. But I kind of missed that boat in high school, right? So I didn't really know how to talk to people in high school. And so, like, every year that goes by, it's like, it's becoming like later and later. And, you know, I'm just not sure how to find that confidence now.
Right. So it seems like everyone else like had some internal idea as to how to like do these social things and like hit these milestones, and then you didn't hit it when everyone else did. And since then, it's kind of like you've been trying to catch up, but feeling stuck. Right.
Yeah. Because, like, you know, logically, there's no way that I can, you know, go back and do it over. If I could, I would.
Sure. Yeah. So do you remember how you felt at that time when everyone else seemed to be making friends and you weren't?
I mean, I've always been like pretty good at controlling my emotions. So I kind of knew that, you know, like, I was okay with it. Like, I sort of see now that it was sort of a problem, but back then it wasn't really like, you know, I wasn't going to be like some edgelord, you know?
Sure, yeah. What do you mean when you say controlling your emotions? How do you control it?
Well, so I've noticed that a lot of people are, you know, they're not really in control of their emotions. So they'll do things like, you know, they can't control it. So they'll like break down and stuff like that. Whereas I've always been like really good. Like, I have I took an IQ test and I'm like high up on the IQ scale. I also took a EQ test from Harvard Business Review, and I'm high on that as well. So I've got like, you know, a really good understanding. I know Dr. K emphasizes it a lot too. So I'm like good at keeping them controlled.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're really on top of yourself, right?
Yeah.
Emotionally. So what emotions are you controlling exactly? Once.
Wow, that is a really good question. I'd say mostly like the lack of confidence is what I'm controlling, I guess. No, I'm not quite sure. That sort of doesn't logically make sense.
How so?
Well, because like if I could control my lack of confidence, like emotionally, then I could do the things that, you know, I should say I can do. But that's what it sort of feels like. I mean, I feel like I'm in control. But the main thing is like the lack of confidence.
Right. So when you say control, so you were comparing to like people that have like breakdowns and stuff, right? So it sounds like you don't let the emotion get the best of you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So
does that mean the emotion still comes up and then you control it?
Well, yeah, that's sort of what I mean is like, I don't let it get the best of me. So like, I can control it. So, my frontal lobe is in control of my emotional circuitry.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't, just like you said, like it doesn't get the best of me.
Okay. Yeah, and that, like what you said was interesting is that it seems like if you were controlling it, then, it wouldn't be stopping you from doing all these things you want to do.
Yeah, I get that. I'm not quite sure. Because I do definitely feel in control of my emotions, but I sort of like acknowledge that, if I were in your shoes, I would be thinking like, oh, this guy, like if he was better at controlling his emotions, he like probably wouldn't have all these problems.
Sure, yeah. How are you feeling as we're talking about it?
Well, I kind of feel like, I imagine like on some levels, I'm like actually way better than your average client, but I imagine you're maybe thinking that I'm maybe not as, with it as some of your other clients are. Like, how would you say I rank compared to like some of the other people you work with?
What makes you curious about the other people I work with?
I don't know. I'm just curious about it, Like I want to, like where do I fit in compared to like the average person who comes here?
Yeah, what would it mean if you were like below average or above average for the people that come in and see me?
Well, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is like whether this is a good fit, So like I'm a big fan of like Dr. K and the streams and stuff, but like, I'm just trying to figure out if this is like if this kind of stuff is like stuff that you can help me with or, or not kind of thing, So I'm kind of curious about, how other people are.
Yeah, makes sense. Before I attempt to answer that, though, what is it about the streams that you like?
Well, so I like that, people seem to have like roadblocks, and so like they kind of overcome those roadblocks. And then the other thing is there are a couple of streams where like I can see at the end that people are like feeling more confident. And so I'm hoping that like by talking to you, like at the end of this, like I'll feel more confident, right? Go through that process of building that confidence.
Right, yeah. And then with that, you would be able to go and like start losing weight and start talking to people and all this stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, makes sense. I think I'm still a little stuck on like this piece about controlling the emotions, right? Like that seems like there's still something to figure out there.
Yeah. I mean, I can see that, so how do we figure it out?
It's a good question. Let me think for a second. Can you share, is there anything from streams in particular that's resonated with you? Like particular interviews or insights?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are. I'm kind of curious though, like, I mean, do you think that this is something that you could help me with, or are you kind of thinking, you know, like that maybe, like, you know, this is not going to work out?
I don't know. I mean, I think we've been talking for a total of, I don't know, like 15, 20 minutes. I think I don't know enough about you yet to see, like, where this is going to go. What do you think about that, though?
I don't know. I sometimes feel like I'm not able to give you like the best answers, so I'm a little bit worried that, you know, like you were kind of saying about the control stuff, like I see where you're coming from, like I should be able to give you a better answer about that. And so one of the things that I'm kind of concerned about is that, you know, on stream it's like people like seem to understand their problems really well, but I'm not so sure that, you know, I'm gonna, you seem actually like super smart and stuff like that too. But I'm just a little bit worried that like I may not be able to give you kind of the answers that you need to help me.
And so what if I told you that everything you've told me so far has been immensely helpful?
Well, I mean, like, it's kind of your job to say that, right?
Is
like,
it?
What are you going to do? Like, tell me, like, everything you've told me is idiotic and a waste of our time?
Fair, right? Like, you can't be entirely sure if I'm going to be honest with you about the quality of your answers. Makes sense. And I can see where you're coming from in regards of, like, yeah, when you watch the streams, it's like Dr. K is like talking to these people and their like answers, it seems like they're like getting somewhere. And right now we're like stuck on this one piece and can't seem to get past that. Right.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Well, I'm curious, what's happened in the past when you've tried to confront this confidence issue?
Well, like, I mean, something or other, you know, like kind of doesn't work out. And usually like I tend to screw things up. Like I start out really strong and I know I'm capable of doing it. It's just when it comes to like the implementation phase. So like, you know, I listen to a lot of podcasts and stuff. And there's this one guy who was talking about reading one book every day. So I started doing that. Because I can handle that. And you know, so I read like one book a day. And so I've learned a lot about confidence and psychology and things like that. But when it comes to the actual like implementation phase, I think it's just something falls apart. Like I just kind of like basically drop the ball, you know? So it's like I've got all the pieces to fix my problem, but like something just, I'm not sure what happens exactly.
Yeah. What's the implementation phase?
So like I was, you know, I'll listen to like TRP podcasts and stuff like that. I've taken a couple of classes on like pickup and that sort of thing. And then, you know, I understand the theory really well, but when it actually comes to like approaching women, like either I kind of screw it up or it doesn't really work, or like, you know, it just doesn't happen the way that, you know, people describe in the books.
Right, I see what you're saying now. So you've got a ton of information at your disposal. You read a lot, like you understand these things intellectually, and then you go to try to act, and then it's like something screws up. Something doesn't happen. Right?
Basically me, right? Because like if the information's right and the theory's right, and you know it doesn't work out, like, you know, what's the common variable?
Sure, yeah. So what do you mean that it's basically you? like, what is you here?
Well, like me, like, it sort of doesn't matter. Like, I can try, going to a party and like, having a couple of drinks. And then there's also like, everyone's been drinking. So it's like everything should be easier socially, but like that doesn't really work out for me. Like, there may be girls in my class and stuff. And like, I've got like a reason to talk to them, right? So like one of the things that I read is like anytime you're approaching a girl, like you should have some reason to talk to them.
Okay.
And so I've got that, right? So I've got like I'm going to ask this girl like, hey, do you want to study for this test together or whatever? And then there was one girl that, for example, was wearing like a t-shirt, for an anime that I really liked. And so I thought that would be like kind of an in, but it just didn't. And so like, what's the common element? Like it's me, right? So I'm not able to do, what I'm supposed to be able to do.
Yeah, sounds like there's some core thing here that's outside of the practical knowledge, the intellect. That is like what you're describing as you, and like fundamentally there's something that you like that can't be done here. Right.
Well, I mean, that's why I'm coming here, because like, this is basically like, I'm 21 years old. Like this is my like last chance,
What makes you say it's your last chance?
Well, like, most people, they like date and stuff like in college, and like once college ends, like, it's going to be hard. And then like, if I have no experience or anything like that, like,
yeah. So like
when a girl asks me like how many people I've been with and I say 0, like that doesn't, it's not going to go well, bro.
Right. Yeah. So sounds like there's another boat here that you're worried about missing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you clarify for me, like, so there's you and like the information are like two different things, right? So like you having all that information doesn't translate into the things you want to do being done, right?
Yeah.
So what makes you keep like reading?
I don't know. I mean, I guess because like reading is like a good thing, right? Like I'm interested in growth and stuff.
So does reading help you grow?
I mean, I guess so, right? I mean, isn't that why people read? So you
I
can
don't
like benefit from like other people's knowledge and like grow.
Do you feel like you've grown from reading?
I mean, I feel like I understand a lot more stuff.
And how has understanding stuff impacted you?
Well, I mean, that's kind of the problem, right? Is it's like not translating.
Right.
So I guess you could make the argument that that's not actually growth, which is interesting. I never really thought about it that way.
Yeah. So what do you think about that? That it seems like you keep on reading and trying to understand things on an intellectual level and like about all these things that you want to with your life, but that doesn't seem to change anything. Like it seems like you know more and you understand like the theory behind a lot of things, but the things you want to do or get done don't seem to be happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's actually a really good, like that, that's kind of like why I'm stuck, because I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing, Like, what else could I do?
Other than read and continue to understand?
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of, I've tried it all. Like, So it's sort of, I've been working at this for a while, and I'm a pretty smart guy, so like I know I've read a lot of stuff. So it's
Right.
sort of.
Yeah, so like on the one hand, it sounds like you feel like you've tried a lot of stuff and everything out there, but there's things that haven't been done. Right.
Yeah, like what do you mean?
Well, earlier, remember when I asked, like, what happens when you try to approach people to talk to them, right? Your response, I believe, was that doesn't really happen.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Right. So actually, let's back up a little bit, because I'm still caught up on the piece about like the learning, the reading and stuff. So how does it feel when you read stuff about like talking to people or like building relationships, like losing weight, exercising, all that stuff?
I feel like, this is really going to help me, right? Like this is what I like, because I got to do something about it,
Yeah.
And so I'm very growth oriented. So when I see a problem, I try to take like definitive action. And so I'll take definitive action. I'll do research. I'll, like look at like different reviews and stuff for different books and see like what's worked for other people. And then like, I'll take definitive action. And
what's the definitive action here?
Like finding the right high quality research. And then, so I'll read like the books and stuff. Like I've spent probably about $2,000 or $3,000 on different kinds of like social and behavioral and like dating courses and things like that. So I can equip myself to be like ready to,
Yes. So sounds like it's a pretty good feeling, right? Because it feels like you're growing, like you're moving towards the things you want.
Yeah. I mean, there's also like, I'm starting to lose a little bit of confidence there too. Cause like, cause there's a part of me that logically says like it hasn't worked. So I'm not quite sure. And that's sort of what makes me feel stuck. And that's actually why I signed up for this.
Mm-hmm. Which part are you losing a little bit of confidence on?
Just that, you could like, kind of like what you're saying is like, you're kind of saying that like reading is a waste of my time, right?
Did I?
I mean, that's what you're saying, right? Like you're not saying it plain out, but you're kind of saying like reading's like a waste of my time and I'm like not approaching the problem correctly. And that what I just need to do is like, just like talk to girls.
Yeah, I mean, so what I've been hearing from you is that, and what I'm, trying to unpack and understand is that you can like, you're this really smart dude, right? Like you understand a lot, like you read a lot, all this stuff. You have all this information at your disposal. Yet there's some intermediate step between like the information, all that stuff, and like the things you want in your life. Right. So the way I'm kind of hearing it is that there's more to the like puzzle here than just the information.
Yeah. I mean, I think so.
Yeah. So it seems like we want to try to figure out what that is.
Yeah. Aren't you saying that that's me?
You said that was you.
Well, like, don't you think I mean, like, that's logical, right? Like, I'm the commented, like, I'm at the end of the day, I'm reading 1,000 books and I'm not actually like talking to any girls.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. I don't know if I necessarily agree that it's like you.
What else could it be? Like the phases of the moon? Part of
the issue here, right, is, if we want to like take a step back and look at the whole picture here, is that like when we say it's like the problem is like you, that doesn't have like a clear, I don't have a clear idea of what that actually means or is, right? Like it sounds like the way we're talking about makes it feel like some like core component, like your essence or something that is unlike changeable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think you like that was pretty good. I think you kind of figured it out, right? Like there's something. It's good. I can. Yeah.
What do you mean it's good?
Like that's my problem. Like that's what I need to change. Is like because something's like busted. Like fundamentally.
Something's busted, or you're busted?
Well, like that. I mean, it's got to be me, right? Because I'm telling you, like I've got a high IQ, I've got a high EQ, I read a lot, I'm growth oriented, and so like I've got all of these advantages, and I really should not be having these problems.
Are all those things not part of you as well?
Well, yeah, but I mean, those things are like that's kind of what I'm saying is I want to fix that thing that's like kind of screwed up, right?
Yeah. So let me think for a sec.
Sorry, just lagged.
Oh.
You're fine.
When did you start believing that like you were the fundamental problem here?
I mean, I always knew that things were kind of off, like ever since I was a kid. You know, like I got made fun of a lot growing up. You know, like, and I remember like complaining to my parents about it, and my dad was like, "That's just life," you know, and sort of like if the kids treat you a particular way, it's because of like, so he was like big into taking control of your life. He was a motivational speaker actually and a pastor. And so he was like, you know, he explained to me that if some, you know, you can whine about what your situation is, or you can do something about it. And so he kind of explained to me that like, you know, if the kids are making fun of you, like that's something that you can, you know, it's in your control to change that. So how you respond to that, what they say, you know, it's kind of like you got to sort of man up and deal with that, right? Like, what are you going to do? Like cry about it?
Yeah. So it sounds like your dad kind of taught you that it's like your responsibility and it's your job to fix the things that like other kids are like bullying you for, right?
Yeah. I mean, so he was also like, when my parents got divorced, he was kind of explaining to me that, you know, when I was at my mom's place, like I would have to be the man of the house, you know, that like I had to like take care of things. You know, that's like.
Yeah. What was it like hearing all of that as a kid?
I mean, I think it really helped me like understand that, you know, it was like really empowering because like I started to like really realize that like I'm in control of my destiny, you know, and that you can't control other people's actions. So you have to like behave in a particular way so that like they don't treat you a particular way. Like no one's going to give you a free pass in life.
Yeah. And so can you tell me more about the bullying? Like what happened when your dad taught you all of that?
Well, I mean, so, you know, this is kind of what I was saying is like, you know, that's true, right? So he was like thousands of people looked up to him. You know, when he taught, the room was absolutely packed. And he, you know, his support and his teach helped so many people. And there was something that where, you know, like I would try to do what he told me to do, but like it never worked out the same way. right? So I stood up to the bullies, and they just like bullied me worse, and like I couldn't get them to change.
So that was the time you were able to take action, right?
Yeah.
And what ended up happening?
I mean, I didn't do it well enough, right? So like I was supposed to really like be confident and stuff like that and stand up to them, and like I guess they like knew on some level that it was sort of like a game of chicken, I guess, where, like I'm kind of getting up in their face and they're getting up in my face, but like they knew they were really confident and I wasn't. So I kind of backed down first, and they just like, and then they knew I was a pussy. So then it was like game over.
Okay. Yeah, so it sounds like you stopped like trying to like face them, right?
Yeah.
And then what was it like for you after you stopped?
I mean, it wasn't pretty,
Yeah.
like, because that's the thing, right? So when you look at research on like alpha wolves and beta wolves and things like that, like once there's a dominant, once there's a dominance hierarchy that's been exerted, like you just stay at the bottom. Sorry, I think you're doing great.
Yeah, so you've been stuck at the bottom ever since.
Yeah. Nice. That's what it feels like, yeah. And
Yeah.
that's the thing, right? So I just don't know how to get back to the top.
Sure. So does your dad's like teaching no longer apply, or how does that fit in now?
Well, I mean, I think it still applies, right? Because like, the world is what you make of it. But to be honest, it's been a while since I've seen my dad. I'm not, so I haven't like really talked to him much about this stuff.
Can you tell me a bit more about that? Your relationship with your dad?
Well, so what happened? I mean, so basically what happened is like they got divorced. I think I was like 9 at the time. And then, like I was saying, like he's like a really successful, like motivational speaker.
Mhm.
And so, there were like tons of people coming to him and things like that. And so he like his like career really like, like really resonated with a lot of people and really picked up. And then sort of like he started traveling and giving talks and stuff like that. And then over time, like actually my mom just took full custody. And then at some point, I think he got remarried, and he's got 2 other kids now. And so we're not really in touch as much.
Okay. And how do you feel about that?
I mean, on the one hand, it's not great. On the other hand, like, I don't blame him, right? Because, life is what you make of it. And he had a good opportunity and he seized it. And he like built a really good life for himself.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's sort of like what I need to do with my life.
Sure, yeah. So I'm going to ask the question again. How do you feel about your dad kind of going and pursuing this other life and no longer interacting with you very much?
I mean, that's just the way of the world. Right? It's like, there's a dominance hierarchy and he's at the top. So he's gonna, like he's a dominant figure.
Okay, so remember earlier when we were talking about how you're pretty in control of your emotions?
Yeah.
Right? So are there emotions here that you're like in control of?
Yeah, I mean, sort of.
How so?
Well, I mean, I just feel kind of weird, like right now. Like, I don't know why we're talking about this. I don't know how, it just feels like we're wasting time.
Okay.
Like, it just feels weird.
What do you mean by weird? What does weird mean?
I don't know. It just feels like, I don't know why you're asking me like all these questions. Like, I feel like you're trying to get something out of me.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah. Well, what does it feel like I'm trying to get out of you?
I don't know, that like you're gonna say like my dad has like abandoned me and so like I'm not confident or something like that.
What makes you think I was thinking that, or was trying to get
Well, I
at
mean,
that?
that's sort of like what the story sort of implies, right? Like here he is and he's got like shiny new wife and shiny new kids and there's like me and mom and like I've read a lot of textbooks on psychology. Like I know how it works.
Right. And does that have any, do you think any of that applies to you?
I mean, theoretically, yes. Like actually, like, I don't know.
And so in theory, what effect would all that have on you?
I mean, I'd probably have like problems with like mentor figures or like male figures or things like that, right? I could project a lot. You know, I would probably have some kind of like abandonment insecurity or something like that.
And you're not sure if any of that applies to you?
Well, I mean, I don't know how I'm supposed to be afraid of abandoning if I can't get into a relationship to begin with.
Do you think that can have any impact on getting into a relationship?
I mean, I guess. Like, I guess it could, like, I guess if I was afraid of it being abandoned, like, it would make it, hard for me to, like, trust people and things like that.
Do you have problems trusting people?
I mean, that's what I'm sort of saying is that, like, I can't get to that point with people to begin with.
Right. Yeah, so it sounds like what's happening is, or at least, as we're talking, like we're talking a lot about a lot of stuff that could theoretically apply to you, but it doesn't seem like things are quite landing with you. Like a lot of things are, I guess it could be right, but it doesn't seem like you really feel like they apply to you. Correct me if I'm wrong, though.
Yeah, I mean, I got to be honest, now that I'm really thinking about it, like I do wonder if some of this stuff applies to me. I think it's worth thinking about. Like, I think a lot of what you're saying could make sense. I mean, I think it sort of makes sense that, if my dad like abandoned me or whatever, like I could have confidence issues or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'd never really thought about, I'd always thought like the abandonment issue like wasn't a thing because, once I thought it would like, that would like manifest if I was like in a relationship. So, but I never really get there to begin with. I also wonder a little bit about, what you're kind of saying about controlling emotions and sort of like this black box of like, what is me?
Mm-hmm.
It feels like there's like a black box, right? And we don't know like what's in that black box. But I think that that's like the problem.
That we don't know what's in the black box.
Yeah, or that the black box is like why stuff doesn't work out the way it's supposed to.
Ah, okay. Yeah, and then to add on to that, do you remember earlier when we were talking about like this core sort of fundamental thing?
Yeah.
Right? It sounds like some of these things that you've sort of talked about in theory, like the black box that you mentioned, and like this fundamental problem with you that's factoring into the equation here and not allowing for the stuff that you want to get done in your life, has some connection to this like I've heard like trust issues, abandonment, things like that, right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
So yeah, does it feel like that stuff is like the missing link here?
I mean, sort of. Like, I can see how it's sort of related, but like I'm kind of saying, like what I need to work on is like the approach. Like I think all that stuff probably comes afterward.
What makes you think it comes afterward and not?
Well, because it like applies to relationships, like logically, right?
Sure.
Like you can't get abandoned if you're single.
Yeah, exactly, right?
What do you mean by that?
You can't. So let me back up a bit.
Nope, don't back. Just go.
Yeah, so you're saying there are like abandonment issues that could affect your ability to like trust people in a relationship, right?
Yeah.
But you feel like that can only happen once you're already in a relationship, right?
Yeah, obviously.
Is it? Well, what makes you say obviously?
Well, like because you can't get abandoned if you're single.
Right. So is it possible though that those like issues with abandonment and not trusting people are what keeps you single?
What do you mean by that?
Right, because you have trouble, and we haven't really broken down like the like play-by-play of like what happens in your head and emotionally when you like think about going and talking to people. But like that's part of the equation, right?
Yeah.
Like it seems like that's one of the things that could prevent you from going and talking to people. What do you think?
Are you saying that like it's hard for me to like approach people because if I'm single, I never have to worry about abandonment?
Yeah, I'm asking like what you think about that idea, if you feel like it could be.
I mean, I've never thought about it that way, but it's kind of interesting.
What's interesting about it?
Just that, I'd always thought that it like, so, Dr. K talks about like protective mechanisms. And I'd never sort of thought about like the anxiety that I feel like, and what makes it like hard for me to talk to girls is being like, because I'm sort of like not playing the game, right? So if I'm not playing the game, like I can't lose.
Yeah. Can you elaborate on the anxiety that you feel?
Well, just that like, because like what if she says no, right? Then I'm going to look like a dumbass. And she's probably going to say no because I don't know how to talk to her. So it's sort of like, there's no point in trying.
And so what are you referring to when you say anxiety? What makes you call that anxiety?
So Isaac, let's pause here, right? Because we're at 50 minutes. So like, why don't you try to formulate the client? So like to wrap up, right? So like think about this as you don't know if he's going to come next week or not, right? Yeah. So what are you going to say to him in the last 5 minutes? So I'd try to formulate a little bit more just because people are watching. So I'd say like for the last, 5 minutes, like try to explain to this person like what you think could be going on. And
okay.
What's your understanding of them and maybe even how to move forward.
Yeah. So like the presentation of like the issues I've heard are that you have trouble doing all these things that you want to do, right? And you understand them all very like intellectually on an abstract like idea level, but then there's trouble like acting, right? And just towards the end there, we're getting into like the emotions that play into things, right? And so it sounded like there was some stuff from childhood, like with his dad and stuff, that taught him like to not act. Like with the bullies, like he tried to go and act, tried to go and act, and then that didn't work out, and it sounds like some like kind of like learned hopelessness type stuff, right? So like there was how I'm understanding it is that there's like hopelessness baked in early on, and that's like a core emotional component that's preventing action in the present, right?
Great. I thought you did a fantastic. So for what it's worth, I didn't have that in my mind when we started off.
Okay, I didn't think so.
And I think you just kind of uncovered it, and I kind of made up random answers as we were going along. But I thought you did a fantastic job, especially like, I was not easy. So I imagine that I was being purposely like more difficult to deal with than most of our actual clients.
Yeah, you knew exactly what makes someone difficult.
And you did fantastic, man. You did really good. So yeah. Usually people are, like, we get to stuff way easier than that. But
yeah, I'm curious, where do you think were areas to like harp on, or that I should have harped on more, or like backed off earlier, if any?
So I think you did a good job in general because I was trying to be difficult, right? Like I was I was fighting you for like each fucking useful answer. I was going into litanies that was just a waste of your time, right? Yeah. And so, so you did a really good job. I also like challenged you, like fucking tried to trap you, right? Asked you challenging questions. How do I compare to your, like all discussions that are like a waste of everyone's time. And you were a nice slippery fish and got to where you needed to go. So I thought you did really good. And I was like actively trying to sabotage this coaching session.
Yeah.
So I think you did really good there. I think a couple of things that I would encourage you to do is, this is just in general, especially for like the more veteran coaches like yourself, I would encourage y'all to like share more thoughts.
Okay.
So I think you were asking a lot of good open-ended questions and stuff like that. But I would, especially if there's someone who's alexithymic, which I'm pretty sure you figured out, right? So like once you know that they're alexithymic, like asking open-ended questions about emotions is going to be sort of, you may just like, it'll make the session feel unproductive. So I think when you kind of got to the dad story and things like that, like if you'd kept asking, there would have been like other situations where I tried to fix my life and like it didn't work out for me. You could ask me about my mom and there would have been stuff there, right? So there's like you kind of said, learned hopelessness early on. This whole thing of like, it's not worth trying because I'm going to fail. So I would also ask, I would say, share more of what you think. Okay. You did a good job of sort of saying I'm hearing, but I felt like there was like, you could just formulate a little bit or like give me something. You were just encapsulating what I was saying, but like you could say, if you're detecting that learned hopelessness, I would say something like, so I'm hearing that sometimes it's not even worth trying because the chances of likelihood are low, right?
Yeah.
And then I would kind of laugh and say, well, no wonder you're stuck because it's not worth trying. Like that's like, it's just a tiny little, Like you can connect those dots a little bit. Because I think you know. So I just share that, right? And you got to be careful. You have to look at how they respond to that. They may take it offense, they may be offended and things. So I think you were really gentle, which you needed to be. But I think the big feedback for all y'all veteran coaches is y'all understand way more than you let on with the clients.
So, yeah, I guess one concern I had was like playing into like the over intellectualizing and like presenting like ideas and stuff that he's like I think someone like this would really latch onto and like try to run with, which may or may not be counterintuitive or counterproductive.
No, so that's right. So if you had done that, I would have taken you for an intellectual ride. So there's a big difference between explaining in a complicated way the theory of how this person's mind works, because then you're fucked, because he's gonna like debate with you and all that kind of stuff. So, but there's a difference between that kind of long explanation and an affectively charged, emotionally charged little statement that you tack on. Right?
Okay.
Right? So there's like a difference between saying, hey, like, oh, you have like a learned hopelessness and learned hopelessness makes it hard for you to blah, blah, blah. Like, don't worry about that. It's like, oh, so like, it's not worth trying because chances are you're going to fail. Well, no wonder you don't ever ask anyone out. Right? You can't intellectually engage with that, but it's going to be like, I'd encourage you to like sucker punch your client just a little bit more. I know it's kind of weird, but just let them have it. Like, be authentic with them. If you really see a problem, it's like, yeah, I can see that, you're kind of paralyzed because it seems like trying is a waste of your time and you're going to fail anyway. So why bother? No wonder it's hard for you. Right? So you can formulate a little bit and just let them have it a little bit more, especially with people who are like hyper intellectualized. Like a good emotionally charged like statement that's kind of like a punch to the gut. You got to be careful. So I'm glad you were gentle, but then you'll see affectively how they respond, right? You do a tiny little one. You can always apologize if they're offended.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah.
Trust yourselves more. You guys are good.
Yeah, I was really excited towards the end when you finally used an emotion, like you said, anxiety.
Yeah, so that's where if I would from a time management standpoint, I would open that up next time, because you are doing really good on sort of like the learned hopelessness and the stuckness, and pointing out to him that there's like you could also explore what it feels like to be like fundamentally busted, because that will get emotions, that'll get affect. Like if you ask him, like, do you feel like no matter what you do, you're going to just be screwed no matter what? And that because it's kind of, if you think about, how broken this person must feel, the more books he reads and the more money he spends on all these solutions that work for other people, and if it doesn't work, what does that mean about how broken he is?
Yeah.
Can you articulate for the stream? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Repeat the question.
So if I do a lot of, I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but so if I read a lot of books and it still doesn't work, what does that mean about how busted I am?
Even more busted.
Exactly. Right?
Yeah.
So what's happening with this guy is the more that he tries, the more broken he feels. And the more he invests in fixing his life, and the less his life, because you figured it out early on, that you even pointed out. So that's something that I didn't give it to you, but over time, you actually won a lot of points there when you were like, it sounds like you're reading a lot, but it doesn't fucking help. Right? So that's actually a huge win in the session, which over time, so when we see behavioral change in our clients, those kinds of things, the light bulb doesn't go off then, but like, you've teed him up to act more, experiment more, and read less with that thing. Even though I'm not going to say it to you, because they're not going to realize it in the moment. But we like move their, this is why like 6 weeks in, 7 weeks, 8 weeks in, clients just start changing, right? They start like behaving differently. They break out of their old patterns. And it's not like they have this moment of like light bulb and then they wake up the next day. It's like a slow chipping away at their like conceptions about the world that allows them to act in a new way. So that was really good.
Yeah, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. Good job, man. Really
Thanks.
Good job.
That was brutal.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't easy on you, but I thought you did really, really good. And I think you also showcased, despite the fact that it was like artificial and hard, and I couldn't help but break character a couple of times. I think that for anyone that was watching, Isaac is actually far smoother and even better than what y'all saw here today. So good job, man. Any questions for me and anything you want to share about this experience?
Yeah, actually, maybe you could talk a little bit about how people should like interpret like what they saw here, and like how this session, this role playing ought to factor into their decision to get coaching or not to get coaching, because I imagine a lot of people are using it like that.
Yeah. So the first thing is that I think we wanted to kind of showcase is just how good y'all are. So like a lot of people think that the understanding of the mind that we showcase on stream or that I share with people is like only my own. But and y'all aren't. I also trapped you, tossed you a landmine early on in terms of like, oh, or like when do I get to talk to Dr. K or whatever. So I think the cool thing is that what we do on stream can be taught, and I think Isaac, you've understood it really well because you figured this client out like relatively quickly. And for those of you that are curious, like we get these kinds of clients a lot. Clients who hyper intellectualize, clients who aren't in touch with their emotions, clients who, despite their best efforts, remain stuck. So I tried to tap into a lot of different things that we see. So I think the other thing to recognize from this role play is that, first of all, it's not as awkward or difficult as it's actually like a lot smoother when you're actually talking to a person. Whereas I was actively trying to make Isaac's life harder, and I think Isaac works really well with a lot of our clients, and that's because their clients aren't trying to make his life difficult. The next thing to kind of take away is that I think it's a good example of like there isn't necessarily emotional catharsis, but that doesn't mean that there isn't change, and that change sort of happens. Like, I don't know if you guys could kind of tell, but there were some statements that I made where like Isaac pointed out to me like how my thinking was flawed. Like reading doesn't actually help, that there's something fundamental broken in me. And that tees us up for exploring, okay, how do you feel fundamentally broken? Are you actually fundamentally broken? Because no amount of books that I read will ever give me an opportunity to understand how I myself was shattered by like whatever experiences I grew up with. Right. So, and as the problem is that this person is looking for answers from like external sources instead of understanding themselves. And as I start to understand myself, like the anxiety will get better. I'll be able to act more, whatever, like you'll figure yourself out. I'll stop reading books and spend maybe more time like meditating or whatever. So I think that like the key thing is that, this is in a sense a good example of like showing, how a coach can, even with a really difficult client, like unpack things relatively easily and start the process of changing the way that they view the world and understand themselves, which is really everything that coaching is about. So that's what I'd say people should take away.
Cool, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome, man. How have you been? I haven't talked to you in a while. I haven't seen you.
Yeah, it's been a minute, actually. It's really funny that you were talking about sleep apnea earlier, because I have sleep apnea. And just got like the CPAP machine or whatever. So yeah.
It can be hard to use at the beginning. Have you gotten used to it yet? Yeah. So, but I'm glad I'm happy that you got, if you have sleep apnea, you got the CPAP machine. Because it'll transform your life, man. Like it's hard to not be able to sleep.
Yeah, I think people in chat might not take you as literally as you mean when you say like go get like whatever checked out, because it makes a big difference.
Yeah, I think that's why we have to say it over and over again.
Yeah.
But awesome, man. Any kind of last thoughts or questions before we wrap up? Chat, do y'all have questions for him? Let's see. And I had to check in with chat a couple of times.
Yeah. The real question is, do I go back and watch the VOD?
So we get everything from, Why Isaac so epic to how big is... Oh, that was deleted. Will y'all ever do in person someday? I hope so. If behavior change doesn't... So this is a hard one for you, Isaac, but if behavior change doesn't occur after gaining self-understanding, then what? This question's a trap. What would you say to someone?
That might imply that we haven't arrived at the self-understanding that we were looking for, or that would result in behavioral change. So
that's a great answer. So that's answer number one. The second thing that I would say in addition to that is, so y'all have to be careful about if questions, right? So so as a doctor, if someone comes in and says, I'm sick, I've got pneumonia, and then I say, you should take these antibiotics, and then they say, but what if the antibiotics don't work? So you got to be careful, because what's the value of figuring out what happens next? The first thing you should focus on is gain self-understanding. And then if it doesn't work, cross that bridge when you come to it. So a lot of times when people are reluctant to do something, what they'll actually do is they'll think about, but what if that doesn't work? And what if that doesn't work? And just think about the anxiety around, asking a girl out. What if she says no? And then that thought keeps you from ever asking her out in the first place. So be careful about if statements and hypothetical statements. It's good to think about academically, but when it comes to your own behavior, be careful. And like Isaac said, a lot of times it just means that you haven't found the right understanding, because usually when you understand, it changes behavior automatically. And if you want to understand this, you can just think about burning yourself on a hot stove. Once the understanding is there, your brain is wired to alter your behavior. Someone's asking how old you are and what's your skincare routine. You don't have to answer either of those. Someone else is asking if you're single. How big is the mug? Any of those that you want to answer?
Yeah, sure. I'll answer all of them. What were they? Start from the
Are you single? What's your skincare routine? How old are you? And how big is your mug?
Okay. Yes, I am single. Spread the word. The mug is quite large. I use it as a cereal bowl sometimes. My skincare routine, I wash my face at night.
Nice.
Was there another one?
Skincare routine, single. Oh yeah, some people are wondering how old you are.
Yeah, so people might be a little surprised by this, and I think some of my clients are going to be pretty surprised when they hear this too, but I'm okay sharing it. I'm 20. So.
Damn, son. Yeah. So, I think that's speaks well of you, man. A lot of people are surprised to discover, our coaches' ages, but I think it reinforces in my mind that it's about training, right? This can be taught, and you could start learning at the age of 18, or you could start learning at the age of 25. You can start learning whenever. I don't understand why medical school gets, learned so late. I started teaching my kids physiology and physical diagnosis. They learn it super fast. It's you can teach children medicine. It's actually really fun and easy. They can learn anatomy. Why not?
I guess. Yeah, a lot of people, or I've had a few clients that have felt a little hesitant about the age thing, because sometimes people just ask straight up, in the beginning, and then it's kind of raise an eyebrow at it if they're 25 or something, getting coached by a 20-year-old.
Yeah, and I think that's where you may just have to. People, I'm not surprised you don't disclose your age. I think it's hard. It complicates things. But at the same time, you are how old you are. And I think that what you have to offer is what you have to offer, whether you're 20 or 30 or 40. For people who've been wondering. So I think, Isaac, you've been coaching with us for 18 months now?
Yeah, I was cohort 2.
Okay.
So I think, sometime over a year.
Yeah. So, and Isaac is a good coach. Most of our coaches are really good, actually. So awesome, man. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you for exposing yourself and putting yourself on the altar of sacrifice. It's really hard for me to be easy on y'all. I don't know how to do that. I need to get better at that. But
no, I think it's good for people to see like the worst case scenario, right? Because most people like want to be helped when they come to coaching, and like this guy, that you like played didn't exactly.
Yeah,
and
that's what. So I wanted to show people also like what a resistant client looks like. Like, he made it hard for Isaac, but I think it really I don't know that people will understand, but I think you really, for me, showcased your skill, because I really didn't make it easy on you. It was fun to watch you, how far you've come, because that's great.
I knew you knew what you were doing at every step of the way.
You knew what I was doing too.
As soon as you said like the alpha wolf thing, I was like, this guy.
Yeah. All right, man. Take care, and thanks a lot.
Yep, for sure.
Adios. All right, Isaac Pog. Guys, I'm sorry, I'm coughing. I don't think I'm going to be able to teach meditation today. But so he started coaching with us, I think when he was like, I assume 19, something like that. And he's fantastic. So like a lot of our coaches are really good. I think our training regimen or our certification process is actually like quite robust. And so, I think we sort of try to make sure that the services that y'all get are like pretty consistent in terms of coach competency. And yeah, so people are asking, so I think yeah, he's good. I feel pride, man. Can people still become coaches? Sure. So we're hopefully launching new coaching slots up on September 20th. Y'all can sign up with promotional pricing on the 8th. And we've got about 20 to 25 coaches that hopefully will start in September. And we're just going to hire and train coaches based on two things. One is demand. So our coaching program has been full for like 4 or 5 months now. And we've got about 19 open group coaching spots left. I think that's all we've got. We've got, I think, about 1,000 people on the wait list. So hopefully we'll get to those people over time. So that's number one. And the second is like good candidates, right? So this is where a lot of people think that like to be a good coach, you need to be like older or whatever. Whereas what we really look for is people who have had some kind of lived experience. So people who have struggled in some way themselves, and then also are like willing to learn and are open-minded. So that's really what we're looking for. And then we put them through a certification process where, we teach them like the theoretical stuff they need to understand. We teach them the skill stuff they need to understand. And as long as we have clients that need coaches, we'll keep coaching. Are there female coaches? Absolutely. And so that's the thing, right? So like, I don't know if y'all get this, but one of the big things that I learned from the gaming community is that on paper credentials doesn't really translate to like value. So like, you can have a great GPA or a crappy GPA, and all really a GPA indicates is like your ability to do boring work over a long span of time. So if you think about, the classes you take as a freshman, like they're not that interesting, right? You don't really get to the fun stuff until later in college. So what we really found is that there's like a lot of people in our community that are very dedicated, really care about other people, and like are also like super smart, like both from an IQ and EQ perspective. And those are the people that, we try to train as coaches. Like you have to care about this community. You have to be willing to serve it, and you have to approach it with like an open mind and be willing to learn. And that's really what we look for. IQ, Andy, absolutely. Lived experiences that they've already processed themselves, sort of, yeah. So like, it's not necessarily like, I think the people who gravitate towards us in the interview and stuff, like, everyone has some kind of lived experience. It's just about kind of processing it and working on it and stuff like that, and being available to help someone else who's struggling. Are IQ tests an indicator for intelligence? Are they reliable, and is there a benefit to doing one? So I think that if you take a real IQ test, my understanding is that they're somewhat reliable, but usually those IQ tests are administered by psychologists, like you can't take one on the internet. And secondly, is there a benefit in doing one? I don't think so. So the reason in medicine we have a really important principle, which is that you administer a test when it alters your management. So a lot of times this can be confusing for patients because they're like, I just want to know, where that's not actually a good reason to get a test. The reason that you order tests, at least in medicine, the way that I was trained, is because if the information from the test alters what you're going to do afterward. So for example, like if I'm going to do a blood culture on a patient with a fever, the reason that that's an important test is because if the blood culture grows a bacteria, then it will alter what I do for the patient. Then I'll give them antibiotics. And if the blood culture doesn't grow anything, then I won't give them antibiotics. So I don't think the right reason for testing is just to know. The right reason for testing is to inform what you actually do with it. And this is a principle that we actually translate into coaching too, which is that understanding is, we don't just increase your understanding just because. The goal of increasing your understanding is to better position you to like move in the right direction, right? So if we look at, for example, like why is it important for me to understand, like in this role play, like why is it important for me to understand that my fear of abandonment keeps me from engaging with other people? Because I want to engage with other people and something's holding me back. There's the black box. It could be the fear of abandonment. So that's an exploration that is meant to actually improve someone's life or alter their life in some way. So I don't see what the utility of getting an IQ test is. Like, how is it going to change? Like, what are you... The only thing it's going to do is it's going to let you brag on the internet or feel ashamed of yourself. One of the two. So does your IQ change over time? I don't think so. So generally speaking, I think the intelligence, like the validated intelligence tests tend to be, tests of aptitude. But I'm not really an expert in psychological testing. It's actually an area that I'm quite deficient in. Medical doctors get almost no training in psychological testing. So that's probably a question better answered by like PhDs. I mean, so, there are definitely cases where IQ can be lowered, like that I've seen. So like, you can look at situations like chronic alcoholism or substance use where like people's brains are fried from like drugs or strokes or whatever. So like in that case, yeah, but that's usually pathologically. All right, who do y'all want to stream? Yeah, I mean, if you guys want to learn about IQ and stuff, that's, maybe what we can do is try to get someone on who like understands psychological testing better. It's really not an area that I'm an expert in. Okay, y'all want to do Wyvern? Is Jordan Peterson streaming? Is there a role play stream going on? By the way, did you all know that TikTok Cringe has a picture of Misgift? Did you guys see this? This is like... TikTok Cringe has a picture... That's Misgift, right? Why is he on the front of TikTok Cringe? Misgift isn't cringe. Look at this. Look at this manly hunk of deliciousness. Look at that. There's nothing cringe about that. That's beautiful. It's artistic. It's like the modern day Mona Lisa right here. This is Misgift too? It's hard to recognize because the shirt is covering his manliness. but it's great. I'm confused about why that's cringe. Seriously, I'm not kidding. I'm not trying to troll anyone. It's like, look at that. Look at this confidence, okay, chat? Look at this. Look at this facial expression. Look at that. Dude, this is solid chat energy right here. That's a fantastic facial expression. Love it. Is Chad and Alpha the same thing? I feel like Chad and Alpha, like, people call it the same thing, but I don't think it really should be the same thing. Okay. We rating Resorty or Wyvern? Let's see. Wyvern or Resorty? You guys want to learn Japanese, or you guys want to... let's do Resorty. Show waitlist. What does that mean? Show waitlist. Show them? No. Show them, please, what? Coaching.healthygamer.gg. Okay. You guys want me to show this? I shall show it. Okay. We'll show them how to get to the waitlist. Okay. So this is coaching.healthygamer.gg. You can sign up for the waitlist right here. So put in your name and your email. And a couple of things about, what we offer. So if you guys are interested in flying solo, there's Dr. K's guide, right? So you can watch it at your own pace, exercises, things like that. There's group coaching. So group coaching is a little bit different. I think that, so group coaching versus solo coaching, it's hard. So group coaching starts out, I think, a little bit, you have to learn how to do it. So the learning curve is a little bit steeper for group. But once it gets rolling, it's actually like really, really good. And the main thing a couple things about group coaching. One is that you can get different people's perspectives on shared problems. And the other thing is that, the group has a certain camaraderie to it that like the individual coaching doesn't have. It's like individual coaching is like more, it's more personalized. But group is a lot of fun. I actually enjoy doing facilitating groups, and I think a lot of our coaches feel that way, more than doing individual work, to be honest. Group is wonderful. So I think the other thing about group coaching is that we teach a lot more in group coaching. So for example, one of the skills that people get in group coaching is like how to ask questions and how to listen. So group coaching is a little bit more of a skills-based thing as opposed to personal coaching because there's no one else to interact with, right, besides your coach. But in group, like we're going to teach y'all how to ask questions to other people, how to listen carefully to other people, and how to explore issues within yourself as well as within other people. And what we've really found in group coaching is that it's hard to see things in yourself. But if y'all paid attention to the role playing today, a lot of the statements that I was making, maybe people in the community would make, but they're a lot easier to like understand and see through when you're observing someone else making them. So one of the really valuable things about group coaching is if you're talking about anxiety and someone else is sharing, their experience of anxiety, you'll be able to see kind of like the flaws in their thinking and therefore understand the flaws in your own thinking because you're like, oh my God, that's exactly what I do. Because human beings can't speak and analyze at the same time, right? It's very hard. So what group coaching really offers is the ability to speak at times and for people to get to know you, and then they'll start to ask you questions and stuff like that. But then when other people are talking, you can learn from it too. And then personal coaching is working one-on-one with a coach. The outcomes are really good. I was about to say appear to be really good, but I think we've got enough data now, and we've got thousands of people that have gone through Healthy Gamer coaching, and the vast majority of them get helped a lot. So I think we're pretty confident that that's also the other reason that we didn't have so many coaches, because we weren't really sure whether coaching actually helped people or not. So we wanted to be able to answer that. It's not just about subjective reviews. The average coach gets like a 4.6 out of 5. But it's about, us being sure that, or confident that the intervention that we're offering y'all is actually effective. So individual coaching actually looks a lot more like what y'all saw with Isaac than what y'all see on stream. So it's somewhat similar, but working with someone over time to actually like work on your issues and implement changes is actually probably more effective than what y'all see on stream. And oh, this is great. I'm glad you guys added this. One session of transformation that fixes your life. Yeah, so if this is the expectation that you have, healthy gamer coaching is not for you. So it's like an ongoing process for creating lasting change, right? That's really what coaching is about. And I hope you guys saw through the video, through the coaching today, that like what Isaac was doing was sowing seeds, right? So there's a couple of different revelations which over time will lead to behavioral change. Reading books isn't enough. Is like one of the seeds that he sowed today. That you can do whatever you want to fix the external world, but as long as you feel broken on the inside, like that's something that needs to be fixed, right? Once you feel less broken, that'll change your confidence. Why do you have trouble engaging with other people? Well, if you're afraid of abandonment, you can't get abandoned if you're never in a relationship. So there's actually like a lot of protective hopelessness. There's a video about that in Dr. K's guide. And so, that's more of what coaching is. So there's also information here about, how our coaches are trained. And here's, tweets. These are unsolicited, by the way. We just, keep an eye out for them. So we haven't asked anyone, to my knowledge, of, to tweet about us. But here are sort of our results. So 45% improvement in feelings of anxiety, 47% improvement in feelings of depression, 32% improvement in sense of life purpose, and a 25% improvement in a sense of control. So coaching is not a clinical intervention. And so people may ask, well, how does this change if it's not clinical? So let's use an example from medicine. So obesity is considered, I think, a medical diagnosis, right? And so there are treatments for obesity that are medical in nature, like a gastric sleeve surgery. But obesity can be improved in ways that are not medical. So nutrition can improve obesity, exercise can improve obesity. And so in the same way, there are non-medical interventions like exercise, meditation. These are non-clinical interventions that can have clinical impacts. But really what we're geared towards, I was a little bit surprised because this is really what we try to focus on is, giving people a sense of control and purpose. And y'all can check these out yourself. So, yeah. All right. Hold on. We can do it, chat. Show them this. Okay, we did it. Okay. I did it. Y'all gotta go easy on me, man. I'm not some youngster like Isaac, being 20 years old. So how can you apply to become a coach? So we'll let y'all know, when we're looking for new coaches. So just stay tuned to our socials and stuff. Just to give you guys I know some people were a little bit upset because they didn't get a chance to apply, but to be honest, it's like we got 1,000 applications in like 3 days or 4 days. So I think the applications for coaching were open for a week, and we didn't keep them open because we're not, we 1,000 applications is about what we have the bandwidth for, right? We didn't think it was fair to leave it open and then not review our application. We had the bandwidth we were only hiring for 20, 25 spots. So we got 1,100. Okay. So that's as many as we can look through. How do you read 1,000 applications? It ain't easy. All right, so we're gonna raid Why You've Earned. And we'll see y'all on Monday. Got some cool stuff planned for y'all on Monday. I need to figure out how to mentor people, chat. Okay. I'm tired. Okay. Sorry, guys, I can't teach meditation today. The cough is not great. So we'll get back to teaching meditation as soon as I can. So love y'all, and we'll see y'all on Monday.